All stations, state of alert.
Break left! They are locked onto us! Engaging target now!
She hadn't run toward anyone like that, not with that kind of light in her eyes, since the day her father died. "Perhaps, Your Majesty," the advisor said quietly. "That's exactly the point worth understanding." Holt Bramwell had never expected his name to come up in a royal conversation at all. He was, by every official record, a coalition repair technician, nothing more. For 4 months he'd been stationed at the Valkyrie Royal Palace, part of a small infrastructure team sent to fix what the recent border conflict had broken. Half the capital's power grid was in pieces, and Holt's job was simple: crawl through service tunnels, splice failing conduits, and keep the lights on in a palace that had seen far too much darkness lately. Nothing in his assignment mentioned children. Nothing mentioned royalty at all. And that had suited him just fine. Holt knew next to nothing about Valkyrie court customs, the layered bows, the correct distances to keep, the dozen unspoken rules that could turn a simple greeting into an international incident. Straightforward work. Invisible work. That was the plan. The plan hadn't accounted for Princess Loressa. She was 7 years old, sharp-eyed, and utterly without the caution palace life was supposed to teach her. She found him during his first week, appearing at his side without warning, without guards, without any of the formality he'd been told to expect from royalty. "What are you fixing?" she asked, as if she'd known him for years. Holt blinked up at her, caught somewhere between his training and simple honesty. "Power conduits," he said, "making sure the lights stay on." "That seems important," she said, and sat down on a crate beside him like it was the most natural thing in the world. It became a pattern. Whenever his repair schedule brought him near the wing she wandered, she'd find him and stay. He explained things simply, the way you'd explain them to any curious kid. How energy moved through the palace's old lines, why some rooms flickered and others didn't. But her questions got sharper each week. Not the questions of a bored child killing time. The questions of someone who actually wanted to understand how things worked. Palace staff noticed first. Quiet concern at the start, a princess, unsupervised, spending hours with a foreign technician. But the concern didn't last. What replaced it was something closer to relief, because what the staff saw in those quiet exchanges was something no one else had managed to bring back. She laughed. Really laughed. Not the careful, measured version she'd learned to perform since her father died 18 months earlier, but something loud and real and unguarded. Word of it reached Queen Iselda the way most things reached her, through careful, formal channels. She didn't act on it immediately. She never did. 3 months into Holt's assignment, she finally raised it in private with her senior advisor, Theodric Vosberg. "Tell me about the human engineer," she said. "Technically skilled," Theodric answered. "Entirely professional in every interaction we've documented. The princess has grown attached to him, Your Majesty, but I should say his conduct has been respectful throughout. Nothing has crossed any line. And her behavior?" Theodric chose his next words with visible care. "Improved. Genuine laughter. Real curiosity. Things we haven't been able to encourage in her since His Majesty passed." Iselda said nothing for a long moment. The particular silence she reserved for decisions that mattered. "Continue watching," she said finally, quietly. Everything changed on the afternoon of the formal diplomatic reception. Holt hadn't planned to be anywhere near it. He was only delivering paperwork, confirmation that a repair job was finished, and he expected to be in and out of the grand entrance hall in under a minute. He hadn't accounted for Loressa, who, it turned out, had memorized the schedule far more precisely than anyone realized. She broke from her position beside the throne the instant she saw him. No hesitation, no thought for the dozens of court officials watching. She simply ran, full speed, across the marble floor, arms already reaching out before she'd even closed the distance. "Hold!" Every guard in the hall went rigid. Every advisor exchanged the same uneasy glance. This was not how a princess of Valkyrie was supposed to behave in front of foreign dignitaries. Holt, despite knowing almost nothing about court protocol, understood exactly what the moment required. He dropped to one knee before she reached him, opening his arms just enough to catch her enthusiasm without letting it become anything the court could misread. It was, as several officials would note afterward. Remarkably well judged for someone with no formal training at all. "Princess," he said warmly, "you're supposed to be at the reception." "I saw you from the stairs," she said, entirely unbothered by the fact that half the room was staring. And here the story turns, because what the Queen noticed watching from her throne wasn't a breach of protocol at all. It was her daughter's face. Open, bright, genuinely happy in a way she hadn't seen since a day she preferred not to revisit in front of company. "Lessa," the Queen said gently, a correction, not a reprimand. "Perhaps you'll return to your place and let our guest finish his business properly." "Yes, Mother," Loressa said, smiling the entire time, clearly unbothered. Holt rose to his feet and offered the Queen a formal bow, though what came out of his mouth next was considerably less formal than the gesture suggested. "Your Majesty," he said, "I apologize if my presence caused any disruption. The princess's enthusiasm tends to outpace my ability to manage protocol." Iselda studied him for a long moment. There was something in the plainness of his apology, no flattery, no performance, that struck her as far more valuable than the polished courtesies she was used to hearing. "Engineer Bramwell," she said, "I find myself reconsidering some assumptions about how palace life is supposed to work." He waited, unsure what was coming. "My daughter," the Queen continued, "hasn't shown this kind of unguarded happiness in a long time. I find myself wondering whether strict protocol has actually served her well, compared to whatever it is you seem to offer without even trying." Theodric, sensing an opening, stepped forward with characteristic diplomatic caution. "Perhaps, Your Majesty, a formal arrangement could resolve both concerns, protocol, and the benefit the princess clearly gains from his continued presence." "Explain," Iselda said. "An official designation," Theodric offered. "Technical tutor to the princess. Palace engineering consultant. Formal status would settle any protocol questions, while allowing the relationship to continue." Iselda turned the idea over for a moment, then addressed Holt directly. "Engineer Bramwell, would you consider a formal appointment, one that addresses our infrastructure needs, and also provides my daughter with appropriate education and company?" Holt hadn't expected any of this. For months ago, he'd been assigned to fix broken power lines. Now a queen was asking him to become part of her household. He took a breath before answering, falling back on the same straightforwardness that had gotten him this far. "I consider that an honor, Your Majesty," he said. "Though I should mention, my qualifications don't exactly include royal tutoring credentials." "Your qualifications," Iselda said, "appear to include something considerably more valuable than a tutoring certificate. My daughter's happiness suggests that real connection matters a great deal more than a diploma." Loressa, who had absolutely not returned to her formal position, despite what she promised, couldn't stay quiet any longer. "Does that mean Holt stays?" she blurted, all pretense of royal composure gone. Iselda allowed herself something rare in front of her court, a real, unguarded smile. "It means," she said, "that Engineer Bramwell is about to become a permanent part of our household, assuming he accepts." "I accept," Holt said, almost before she finished the sentence. Loressa's reaction was instant and unmistakable, joy so genuine that several court officials would later say it was the happiest they'd ever seen the young princess look. The formal appointment came through within the week. Holt's role shifted from simple infrastructure repair to something with far more weight behind it, a steady, trusted presence in the household. Someone whose bond with the princess gave her exactly the kind of warmth and stability that court protocol, however well-meaning, had never quite managed to provide since her father's death. Months passed. Queen Iselda watched her daughter's happiness grow steadily, and found herself quietly grateful for the strange turn of events that brought an unremarkable human engineer into their lives. Sometimes, she realized, the most important people in a royal court don't arrive through diplomacy or bloodlines or grand appointments. Sometimes they arrive carrying a toolbox, sent to fix something no one thought mattered, and end up fixing something else entirely. She watched her daughter disappear down the corridor beside him, laughing at something he'd said. Strange, she thought. Kingdoms are usually changed by generals, by diplomats, by kings. Sometimes, though, they're changed by someone who simply makes a child smile again.